Hi, my name is James Renford Powell, and you're watching The Bookman Show. This is the show that deals with how, who, where, when, why, and what that you need to know about having your own book in print. And we've been spending a lot of time here with authors, writers that are not yet published, people who work with these authors, and all the things that it takes to put that book into print in a professional fashion. This show is brought to you in part by the Institute of Applied Metaphysics, the Church of Revelation, and IAM Press. IAM Press is a company that specializes in assisting first-time authors get their books into print. And we have had some very, very interesting guests on the show, and tonight is no exception. Our guest is Keith Blanchard, the author and best-selling author of The Divine Principle. And we're going to be talking to him about his process of getting that book into print, what brought it on, and so forth. Welcome to the show tonight, Keith.
Thank you, Jim, for having me.
Tell us a little bit about what in the world possessed you to write this book.
Since I was a kid, I always had drive. I actually heard it said that I have the drive and the fire that sometimes exhausts most people. Years ago, I was always on a spiritual path, pursuing meaning, deeper meaning in life. And, I've always said pain is a great catalyst, and I went through a relationship breakup that really moved me in such a way I was humbled.
What religion were you as a child? What did you grow up in?
I was brought up Catholic, and it didn't work for me. It was it just wasn't my path, my walk. And out of this breakup, in this place of humility, I began to say a prayer out loud, meaning to God that I need to hear your voice. I'm in a very dark space, dark night of the soul. Little did I realize a few weeks later that was actualized. I was awakened out of my sleep by a voice. There was no one in my home, assuming that someone was. So I laid that back down in the bed to go to sleep with the intentions of going back to sleep. And the voice spoke again, so I sat up in bed surprised, knowing that something was up. And I was thrown back on the bed, and I found myself submersed in what we know as a divine experience. And I can hear the voice, I can smell the voice, I can taste the voice, I can feel the voice. It was everything imaginable. And simply the voice instructs me to go sit on my sofa and bring a tape recorder and begin to log the information. And I did, and over a period of quite a few years, the book started taking shape in the form of the book we know as The Divine Principle.
So as far as you're concerned, this is really not something that came from you. This is something that's being delivered to you.
Through me, yes, yes. And, little did I know that as I look back to where I am now in my life with this, I see it as a divine setup. Before this voice ever spoke, I never saw it coming. But once it spoke and my life began to move, I actually knew deep inside that it was always supposed to be this way for me. There was no way I could not have walked this path. I could have made easier choices and got on the path easier, but I painted myself in the corner by foolish decisions I made as a kid. And
now you've been on sort of a two-track system here, because you make your living as a musician, and you make a decent living as a musician.
I do.
And you've been been involved in making a film, or a film has been made about you, or
about my life,
about your life. And but has that had any effect on things? Does that shape? Did that in any way shape the book, or do you see the book as kind of a pristine, separate thing that you were given?
I think the book is a manifestation of everything I am, everything I'm about, everything I believe to be right, quote, real, quote, true. I've seen what the book has done for me as the author, how it shaped my life, because I didn't want to just write a book about these spiritual precepts and concepts and then put it out there and distribute it to the masses, and as if I was reciting something like a parent. I literally wanted to live every one of these variables, all these principles, all these ideas, so that when I began to share this with the public, that it had some power behind it, that I know that these principles are very valid in one's life. there's no bigger joy for me than to have someone come up to me and said that something I've written or something I've said has done something wonderful in their life. And it's not an ego stroke. It's truly a joy, a reward.
The catalyst for the writing of the book, now some people feel compelled because of money. They're compelled to tell a story or to record something that their relative did, or there's all kinds of things that compel people to, but this is almost like it reminds me a little bit of the calling of Samuel and Eli, and the angel comes to him and he keeps coming up and saying, you called, and finally Eli said, it's the Lord. You listen to do what he says.
Yeah.
Did you have that kind of feeling about the whole thing, that this was not your choice?
Strangely, that does apply in some way. It was my choice ultimately, of course, but it was something that, like I said before, it's a path I had to walk. There was just no way around it. It was, it was more or less an ease factor. If I get along with the program, everything would flow. If I don't, there'd be some bumpy spots.
Tell the listeners and the viewers about your trip to India. what that came about was a rather strange, as you revealed it to me.
Yeah, I some years ago, I was teaching a class at the particular place here in Memphis, Tennessee. And after the class, a friend of mine approached me. I hadn't seen it in a while. There was a wall, and on this wall was pictures of deities like Mother Teresa and Buddha and Christ, and all these well-endowed spiritual beings, right? And so I asked Paul about a few of them. I didn't know who they were and what was their mission, and he proceeded to tell me. And I got to this one particular person, and he said, this is an avatar, translates to a divine descent, who lives in India and has this ability to manifest objects at will out of thin air. And so being a spiritualist, I was really, really intrigued by that idea. And so I started reading every book I can find on this avatar. And I can literally feel his presence in my home by the banter, the things that he said. He doesn't write books. People write books about him. But I can feel his energy in my home, his presence. So he started appearing to me in sleep states of consciousness for years. And one night he says, I want you to come to India to see me. And of course human logic kicks in and says, how will I get there? Where will I get the money? How can I put all this together? He says, Keith, you're going to have to learn to transcend all this doubt and disbelief. I'm going to take care of all the details. You just need to have the want to come see me. I said, okay. The next morning I wake up, excited about planning my trip to India. And a week later, no kidding, a week later I get a phone call from a lady I've never met. Says, hi Keith, my name is Debbie. We have a mutual friend, and I hear you want to go to India to see a holy man. I said, yep, this is right. She goes, well, I'm a flight attendant, and I have some companion passes for the year that are about to expire. And I would really hate that, knowing that you want to go to India to see your holy man. Can I give you a round trip ticket, first class, to India? And that's how I went to India.
Now, when you were there, his ashram is in southern India, isn't it?
That's right.
And how long did you stay?
I stayed for 2 weeks. A week would have been long enough. Being there as long as I was receiving so much spiritual information. I started to become so full. It was getting uncomfortable. It's like eating cheesecake, 3 or 4, 5 bites at most, get enough. It was sort of like spiritual cheesecake. It was getting very rich, and I really couldn't process and take anymore. So, but 2 weeks was it was a miraculous journey, seeing the things that I've seen. Things manifest right in front of you. This man has the ability to change the weather, which I've seen. Most things that most people wouldn't believe. They wouldn't believe it. But it was truly a divine experience for me.
And this, I have heard from several people that had received jewelry or baubles of some type or another. You just reach up and hand it to them.
Yes, absolutely. And there's some places, any of these shrines devoted to this particular avatar, there's this ash that literally just manifests off this picture constantly. There is no reason. There is no rhyme or reason except your devotion to such a master. It's his way of showing his love and reciprocation.
And you then came back and began to write.
Actually, I started writing this book, The Divine Principle, in 96 when I heard the voice. The halfway mark, I went to India and I quit writing the book because I was devoting. I would get up at 11 o'clock, I would start writing at noon, and I would literally make 6 to 9 hour writing days. And the only reason I would get up is to get something to eat, use the restroom, get some water or something. And after about a year and a half, maybe 2 years of that, I said, I'm gonna leave it alone for a while. And I left it alone for about a year and a half. And I went to India. And when I got to India, I asked this avatar, I will finish the book. I'm enjoying doing this. But if there is something else in alignment for me to live my life, and this is really not it, point that out to me so I don't waste my energy. Make it clear to me. And that was clearly made known to me by pointing me out of 35,000 people.
Finish that book.
Finish that book.
And I'm surprised he didn't tell you. I wouldn't have asked you to do it if I didn't want you to do it.
Yeah, right.
And out of 35,000 people, would you have that kind of crowds there at one time?
Oh yeah, there are 30,000 plus visitors to the ashram daily, and on a festival day like the Mahashivaratri festival, the attendance can be 250, 300,000 people on the ashram. That's a lot of people.
Now, as he has left the body, what is going on with that ashram now, or do you know?
I'm sure it's still the sanctuary that it always is. It's called Prashanti Nilayam, which means the abode of highest peace. And what was the most beautiful thing, we can talk about this avatar and the fact that it has the abilities to manifest objects at will, change the weather, read your thoughts, all these things. That's all groovy and fun, exciting stuff. But his message is universal. His message is about the universal religion, which is love. And when I was in the ashram, and being able to not only see, but to feel the power, the magic of all these people from all denominations, all faiths, go there for one reason, and that's the Unitarian power of love. And they put aside their color, their creed, their codes, their sex, their class, and they all just show up in this...
In dogma.
In dogma. And they just show up in this amazing brother-sisterhood. That's where the magic is for me, is to see people coming together in a very unifying way that transcends everything that we're up against in this world today.
Now, the avatar tells you to write the book, but he doesn't tell you it's going to be easy.
Oh, no.
And he doesn't tell you how to do it.
No.
Or what the process would be. What was your process in getting this book into print?
When I heard the voice and I started transcribing all this stuff, and keep in mind I failed English too, 4 times. I failed typing. And that's pretty much what is required to write a book, so to speak. But I had the drive and the passion and the want and the courage. I didn't know what I was writing. I didn't know how to structure this. I started clumping together topics. If I was writing about fear, first thing I did, Jim, was I was just writing, just getting all this out, all these ideas, and I would write.
Which is exactly what we advise our authors to do. Don't worry about the details, don't worry about the grammar, don't worry about any of that stuff. Just get your thoughts down, and it may be that something that you write today may end up in 3 books later. It has for me.
Well, you and I were talking a little earlier about having a tape recorder or a pad, because those thoughts that you will place in your future bestseller are coming now. They're coming through you. And so I would just write without any rhyme or reason. And then after I felt like I've regurgitated a lot of this inner truth, this inner wanting to know more about God and myself and the universe, I started looking at it from a different perspective, and I started putting things into categories. This is about love, this is about fear, this is about doubt, and so forth and so on. And this is how I began to categorize and chapter these things. It's a process. It's a process of learning yourself. It's a process of learning your craft. Don't be hard on yourself at all. In fact, if you're finding yourself writing with effort, you will achieve less It's more, if you can write when you're in the flow, you will achieve more than, and the information will have a great impact. Always write when you're in the flow of writing versus sitting there trying to think of something to write about.
Now, some people write in the morning, some people write at 3 o'clock in the morning. I've always had a tendency to write not so much in the morning as in, I used to go to donut shops. Donut shops used to be my thing. Why? Because Gibson's Donut Shop and Howard's Donut Shop didn't close, you know?
Bro.
And if I was in the flow, I didn't want anybody coming in and bothering me. And sometimes I'd get into the flow so much that I didn't know really what was going on. I had them come one night and apologize to me about the noise because it was a graduating class had come into Gibson's. A bunch of noise. It never registered with me. I was in the flow. And, you know, they'd come out sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning and give me a donut that had just been done, you know, and then I'd realize, well, you know, I need to wind down because I could be in the office at 9 o'clock type of thing. But do you write at night, or did you write in the daytime, or or just whenever it hit you?
My writing work schedule, so to speak, was noon till 6 in the afternoon to evening, or till 9 at night. But there have been many cases I'm waking out of a stone sleep, and I got to turn my computer on, and I'm trying to retain the thought, or the principle, or the idea that I had coming out of this sleep while I'm booting up my computer, hoping that it stays there. And then I would begin a writing session from 3 in the morning till 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. But my writing sessions were usually from noon till 6.
At one point, I was living in Dallas, and I was still doing quite a bit in Memphis, and I was driving back and forth, and I'd get up at like 3 o'clock in the morning in order to be here for a morning appointment. And when I was working on The River of Life, which turned into almost an epic-size poem, I'd be driving and I'd have to stop. I'd go in a coffee shop and write on a napkin. Yeah. And lots of times that's occurred. You got to get it down when it's there. Don't let it go away.
Yeah, and absolutely, and I've always found that when you're writing something, as those thoughts are coming in, don't suppress them, don't dismiss them. If you're going to discard the thought anyway, write it down. Because even though you're going to discard the thought, what you're doing is you're opening yourself up as a channel by at least allowing it to come through you. I mean, if you want to have clear water run through a hose, you have to let the water run so that it can eventually get to the state of being clear. That's a very powerful metaphor, being clear. So just write. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about grammar. Don't worry about, if you want to put a comma and a period and a question mark, this is fine. But as far as making this thing so perfect, just run the water. Just go through the motions, get it all out, and then you can pick and choose what you want later. Free yourself up while you're writing. Do that work on the backside.
This is good advice for authors. I'm going to take a few minutes break, and when we come back, we're going to have our Poet's Porch, a little thing that we've been doing with each show to give some interest and focus on poetry for our shows. So we'll be back in just a few moments. This is our Poet's Porch section of the show, and today I'm going to read some parts of several poems. These are not mine, but are apropos to our discussions and talks here. This one is by Longfellow. Tell me not in mournful numbers, life is but an empty dream. For the soul is dead that slumbers, and things are not what they seem. Life is real, life is earnest, and the grave is not its goal. Dust thou art, to dust returnest, was not spoken of the soul. Very interesting thoughts from Longfellow there. And here's another. God within me, God without, how shall I ever be in doubt? There is no place where I may go and not there see God's face, not know. I am God's vision and God's ears. So through the harvest of my years, I am the sower and the sown. God's self-unfolding and God's own. This is not from a Christian book. This is from the Book of Runes, an ancient Nordic teaching, which I found very interesting because you wouldn't know it from the wording. Thank you for spending a little time with me here on the Poet's Porch, and we'll be back in a few minutes with the conclusion of our show and our interview of Keith Blanchard. Hi, this is James Renford Powell, and we're back on the Bookman, and we're back from our Poet's Porch, and with our guest Keith Blanchard. And Keith is a best-selling author. He has a film that has been made about him, and he's a teacher. And I want to ask him in these closing minutes, we have about 7 minutes on the show, to speak from the heart and tell you, potential authors, potential best-selling authors, published authors, a little bit about his process, and maybe give you a little personal advice. This is a really down-to-earth, face-to-face, personal advice from Keith Blanchard.
Thank you, Jim. If you have the idea running through your mind that you want to write a book, first thing you should do is ask yourself, why is that thought in my head in the first place? And if you are thinking about pursuing this in such a way, and you have a vision for yourself, remember that your passion is the fuel for your creativity. As long as you have passion, you will have creativity. Just write. If you want to do it with a computer, using a keyboard, it could start off as a very non-structured thing. Always be easy on yourself and just write. Feel the keyboard in your hand as you're trying to bring information to it. If you want to do it the old world way, using a pencil, feel how that feels in your hand as this information comes to you. Just write. Write for the sake of writing. Don't write for the goal, for the future goal. The goal is the journey. It's always about the present moment. Write what you feel, to whatever degree you're feeling it. Use whatever explicits if you have to make your point. When it comes to publishing, there are many self-publishing houses out there today. Same thing as with musicians, being a musician myself. Back in the day, we wanted record deals. That's all changing. I mean, you're recording your own music now in your own home recording studio, as I have done for 3 albums. Same idea. Don't worry about getting picked up by a publisher. That's not your job. Your job is to express yourself, and express yourself very well. So you write out this lot of dialogue information, depending on if your book is a nonfiction or spiritual book or whatever category your book's going to fall in. Just write. And in that process of constant writing, what you should be writing about will unfold. It will take form in a way that's obvious for you to see. And then you can start moving into that window, and writing in that niche on purpose. And I think you will begin to see a book that you've only had as a vision begin to take shape in your mind's eye. Most important is be easy on yourself. Doing this the way I did some years ago, I had no direction. I had no mentor. I had a voice, but I was determined. I was determined to see this project through. I knew it was going to be, quote, successful. Successful meaning I would feel good about what I've done. And that in and of itself was enough for me. And when that... Probably a life review. Your whole life up until this point. So, passion. Again, passion is the fuel for creativity. And good luck with your project.
Thank you very much, Keith. He mentioned the word mentor in there. And this is what I've tried to be with all of my authors, everybody I'm working with. And I keep saying over and over again, a mentor that you should be dealing with is somebody who has been where you are and is now where you want to go. This is what we're looking for here. Somebody who has been where you are and is now where you want to go. Thank you very much for being with us on the show, Keith. And thank you, viewers, for being with us on the Bookman Show. Have a good day. Keep in mind that not only can you view us here on the Bookman Show, but we also have 5 radio shows. These are internet radio shows. On Monday night, Pam Drinnon comes to you with Cosmic Contact Show. And she has a number of guests who are intuitives, clairvoyants, very interesting shows. And then at 8 o'clock, Keith Blanchard will be with you with the Searcher's Roadmap Show. And his current series of shows have been dealing with the year 2012 and some of the predictions and so forth that have been out, good, bad, and ugly, about 2012. And then on Tuesday night, we have the IAM-Well show, hosted by Nick Couples. And this has to do with alternate forms of healing and everything from acupuncture and herbalist to anything that's not allopathic or not the regular medical doctor. And on Wednesday night, I come to you with the No Show, the KNOW show, the one show you don't want to be a no-show on. Because on that show, we have some very interesting guests with interesting vocations and interesting experiences that I think ought to see the light of day and not be hidden in the corner. And on Thursday, we have Darryl Clark from New York coming to you with the Progressive News Weekly. So keep those shows in mind, and keep in mind that you can go to the IAM-COR website, which will be listed here on the screen, and download free the Lightways or the Lightways e-zine, which is an electronic magazine anybody can download. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you later.